Yo, welcome to the gospel according to T, man. I've got my guy Parker Lee here. He's a buddy of mine, business owner, entrepreneur, family man.
Yeah.
All that the and above. I met him about a year ago on some change. A guy that we mutually know said you guys would basically mesh well. So here we are today, still going strong, figuring some things out. Listen, man, go ahead and introduce yourself. I did a light intro. Tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah. Like you said, just a business owner. Been on my own now, working for about 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple kids, nice little family. So that about sums it up. I touch all industries, right? So on the business side, it's I'm really nondescript. I really like businesses that I can improve with efficiencies.
Yeah.
So that's like my forte is like, kind of fixing the business model or making it just a different enough that I can put someone who's either smarter than I am, right? Or that can work harder than I can. Yeah. So
how hard do you think that is for people to, embrace that fact?
Yeah, I think it depends, right? There's a lot of people out there that really believe that they have to control and everything, right? And I know my strong point is the imagination side, right? The creation. So when it comes to like, putting the screws down, like I'm the one to put the screws in place.
Yeah.
Right. And when it comes to tightening the screws and being the monitor of that, I really don't excel well there. So I'm not the one who can really like push the envelope after the business model is fixed up and polished, right? I got to be the one to kind of create it.
Yeah.
So that's where I do good.
Interesting. So would if somebody were, listening to that, is the interpretation would it be that you don't necessarily like confrontation?
No, it's not that, because I actually
I'm about to say, because
yeah.
that almost sounds
yeah, no, that's actually the opposite, right? So I'm a big picture kind of person, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very much how do you say? I really like the idea. I really like to create, right? So that's my thing, is I'm a creator, not in the sense of like I'm not an artist. Anybody watching just know that I can't even draw a stick figure, right? Like I'm not writing poems, I'm not doing any of that. But where my creativity comes out is if I can look at a business model, right? Maybe that's traditional. I can find a way to fix it in a unique enough way that we can go to market and be special, right?
Yeah.
Find our own little lane and then make money in that way. Now, as far as the detail, or not the detail, but the confrontation side, is actually like one of the things that I enjoy most is when I need to go like eliminate someone in the business. And the reason that is
I like
because,
that word eliminate.
Yeah,
You're like, we've got to eliminate the opposition.
Yeah, facts. That's how it is, right? It is an opposition, right? So I will allow people to enough rope that they will hang themselves every 10 out of 10 times.
Metaphorically, people. Metaphorically, for those listening, we live in a different time now. They take everything fucking personal.
Yeah,
so.
Metaphorically for sure, right? But the point I'm trying to make there is that I believe I'm definitely more on the side of people can do good and will do good, right? And so I give you the time and space to do so.
Yeah.
Right? Now, once you have shown me in enough ways that you will not do good for me or for yourself, then those lights turn on, right? And it becomes a totally different, like that creator side gets put to a different, put away.
Yeah.
And, Parker, who needs to feed his family, comes out and I start making heads roll. Like it's a totally different thing. Like, recently I had to have that conversation with somebody, and it's very much that like I gave them so many opportunities to prove themselves, so many opportunities to like do good by the business, that they basically fired themselves.
Yeah.
Right? Like it wasn't a question of like, do you understand what you did? It was you screwed this up. And you screwed it up so bad that now I'm here having to have this conversation. The manager that was in place, or the CEO that was in place of that business, they weren't capable of having the conversation. They didn't want to have the conversation. So now it's my turn. Right. And when I show up and I'm having a serious conversation like that, you already knew the answer.
You knew what was happening.
If I'm coming in to have fun, okay, we're doing good. But if I'm coming in and I haven't said hello to you, or if we're not having a good time that day, you already know what time it is.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. I enjoyed that just as much, man. Trust
Yes.
me. I'm looking for all the smoke. Is what I tell
Yes.
people. And a lot of times being in a position that of CEO or business owner or
Yeah.
creator, if you would, people, the goal, what he's really saying is, and this is how I do it, I say, I want you to prove me right. If we put you in a position to do well and
Exactly.
excel and be successful,
Yes.
then you gave them ample chance. I want the proven part is not you proving me wrong. It's proving
Yeah.
that you belong here
Yeah,
and that you want to
100%.
be here.
It's so clear to me, right? So many people take it to the negative connotation, right? And they think, oh, well, he just wants me to fuck up. Am I allowed to curse?
Absolutely.
Okay, bet. Yeah, I mean, like a lot of times they think like, oh, he just wants me to screw this up and fail, right? Well, the reality is no. Like I want you to prove to me that you belong to be on the team because we don't bring my bad. We don't bring a lot of. I don't bring a lot of people into my circle, so to speak, right? So the people that do make it to that point or that I do have exposure to, and I wouldn't even call it my circle, but I don't give a lot of people exposure to me. And that's because I'm so giving with my time, right? So the people I do, I want them to prove me right. Like, okay, I made the right decision for us to be having interactions.
Yeah.
Right? So like, we have this lab here and there's probably 110 employees, right? Between the lab and the x-ray company. I might know like 7 people's names. And that's not because I don't care about the others, right? But the people that I do care about, not that I care about, but the people that I do interact with regularly are like vital team players, right? And I only pay attention to their performance, and I base their performance based on their overall team's performance, right? And so I want them to prove me right every single day. Like, why are we interacting, right? Why are we having communications? Not because I'm special, but because if I'm the one who's making the decisions for the health and the wealth of the business, y'all got to be working with me.
I think you kind of got to embrace that little special thing too, because if you think about it, I told somebody once who had an issue with confrontation in their business. I said, why are you acting like you fucking doing these people like they're doing you a favor? They're fucking employees.
Well, I'm against, I don't know.
Look, but the other part of it is where there should be respect. The part of your job, what you're saying is I've got to build parts of the business so the business can run. And as Gates and Jobs said, every time we grew 25,000 more employees, we then had to make sure we could sustain that so these people could feed their family.
Right.
It wasn't something we didn't want to grow. We were like, oh, let me build this and grow to 130,000 employees at Apple or Microsoft.
Right.
It's like, yo, we got to find we got to choose correctly. We got to make sure this thing rolls. We got to go out and sell more now. We've got to keep these people. It becomes an obligation, but an opportunity at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I view talent as different, right? Like that's why I like to put people in charge of the businesses that I help create, right? So with that being said, it's important for me I don't really like to put myself on the pedestal like I'm better. Like I'll go scrub toilets, No,
I know
the reality is that it's my business, right? And so that's the only difference maker between me and that other person that I'm talking to.
That's the part that makes you special, though.
I don't think so, right?
Because I think it is. I think, look, when the boss, somebody just sent me something last night, and it said what they fail to realize is a boss does everything. A real boss literally, like you just said, does everything. When I was a kid working at Culver's once, and I remember Matt would have his managers, a guy who owns 6 Culver's, he's doing well, in Kansas City, to be clear. I remember when any of his managers schedules him in the kitchen running orders, that motherfucker ran every order. He's 44 years old. So when you say special, he led by example, which is one of the most important things I think a leader could do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, right? Like definitely leading by example is one thing, right? But you still have people who will do things and as a narcissistic control freak feature, you know what I'm saying? They're like, I'm going to do it because I don't believe anybody else can. And that goes from like scrubbing the toilets all the way up to like depositing bank slips, So that's not the perspective that I think is healthy.
No, not at all.
Like where I'm at is that, I own the business, but because you are a cog in the wheel, if I don't pick the right piece, right, the wheel won't turn. Yeah. So that's more of it. So whether you're a manager, a high level manager that's controlling a $20 million business, or you're a manager or someone that's a mid-level manager that's controlling, a new product launch that has $0 in business. Like you're just as important because it's going to be a new cog to the wheel. It's going to be something that's going to help us spin and be more successful. And I have to nurture those the same, in my opinion, right? Or, generally. And so it's talent based, right? Because if you look at like how hedge fund managers or how PE guys, they all invest, they love the ideas, right? But they can love an idea and not love the people, and they won't invest, right? But there are plenty of examples where they love the people more than they love the idea, and they'll invest, right? Because
hey, Marcus Lemonis, people, product, and process. 9 out of 10 times, even on Shark Tank, you've seen it, where they'll be like, I mean, the business is doing well, making money, and then you waste on what they're saying, and you look up, and the guy like Damon John's like, bro, I just wouldn't want to. Mark Cuban as well. I couldn't deal with that guy.
Yeah,
like I can't. I don't care if you're doing $200 million. I don't ever want to wake up and have to deal with a phone call or email from you.
Yes, there's plenty of examples of those, right? And so that's a huge deal for me. Huge deal is that, and that's why I kind of try to nurture the talent. You know? So.
I like that word nurture. When you think about the nature of something, most things unfortunately need a lot of nurturing.
Facts.
And one of the hardest things that I would say being a business owner is really pouring into the people.
Yeah.
You know, that's like the business it'll get to a point where it's like rolling, but like to really keep people motivated, inspired, doing not a good job, a great job.
Yeah.
You got to be encouraging. There's so much that goes into the people side of this thing that it wouldn't work without them, to be clear.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. I mean, the wheel doesn't spin, like there's never been a wheel that spins with no spokes. Right. Go. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I see it, right? Like you gotta have a centerpiece, and then you have to have something that connects yourself to the ground and makes that thing turn.
So talk to them a little bit about what motivates you. And, I want to go back to some of the first things that you built. And mind you, we've talked about this a few times. I want to get it on camera. And to be clear, people, when I met Parker, I was like, man, this is a young guy who's onto something. He's thinks things through, which I don't think a lot of people think things through. I won't get too personal, but I do want you to walk them through what it was like to, like, let's say, hey, you made your first meal. What happens when you make that? And then, because we know how it affects some niggas.
Yeah.
And then, but
I'll be clear, I was not any different. I was not any different. Like, I still have all the chains and watches and cars. Like, I've got all that. Like, let's be clear. Is it healthy? Absolutely not. Absolutely not healthy.
Oh, man.
No. Yes. I mean, like, it's a great point, right? So, like, my first, when you met me and I was already on to like my second and third venture.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Sold the lab. We talked about some things that you had done well.
Yeah, for sure. So I had liquidated a lab, and I had a couple times, pharmacies and different other things that I had been doing. And so at the stage that we had met, I was just like dabbling in real estate. And then we had really started our e-commerce deal, right? Which was kind of fun, right? But, what I would say is like, if I could take back the things that I did with my money first, that first like million, I would 100% take all of it back. Now, mind you, right? Like, I think it's Grant Cardone that says he goes broke like once a year, right? And I don't quite do that, but I would say that within my first meal, like I spent enough money to feel that feeling again. Yes, 100%. Like because even though like I came from a family that we did well, we were I wouldn't say we're going crazy, but we were definitely above middle class. Like we had drivers and people taking care of us and stuff like that. Like it was a good life, right? But like. It's different when you're touching the money, right? It's way different when you're cutting yourself like $100,000 payroll checks every 2 weeks, or, like you can, tomorrow decide you're going to go stay somewhere for a month and don't have to worry about how much is in your bank account. Like it's a whole different experience. Yeah. And so like having that access at first was mind boggling, right? Like I wasn't able to focus. It just wasn't. I mean, like I remember like my 30th birthday, like I went and spent like $10,000 2 weekends in a row just on parties. What was I doing? I don't understand. I was like, I'm so important that I need a Miami birthday and I need a Texas birthday, a Dallas birthday. What are we doing? So anyway, like, so I would say that, I do think through it a lot, right? But nobody is immune to those urges, right? Because you work for it, right? And
absolutely.
So what I would say is where I learned my lesson is after I blew through a good chunk of a lot of that money, right? And not a good chunk, but enough of it to make me uncomfortable, Yes. And so, and so once I realized, and I was like, okay, I have like the fire woke me up again. Like it just one day I woke up and I had the same level uh, of of drive that I did before I had no money.
Hmm.
And so, and that's pretty much been consistent. Like it ebbs and flows, right? We're humans, that's going to happen. Life will beat you. But generally speaking, like, yeah, I try to plan out, um, you know, based on my next business, right? Because that's where I get my fulfillment.
Yeah.
The ability to create something new. So, right now, most of my work has been service based, meaning that like, I have the lab, right? I have the trucking companies.
Hmm.
We've got, a couple other things here and there. We did do the e-commerce, and that worked great for a little bit. And as you know, we can get into
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
We got entangled with a huge import problem that, man, that was a nightmare. But so
Yeah.
we kind of walked away from that business. But generally speaking, I've been a service guy. So now, after I stabilize what we're doing here, like the home health is my newest venture. And once I get that really healthy and stable, I'll probably walk away from it in the sense of put somebody else that's smarter, better, faster than I am,
Yeah.
and then go to create something. Like I want to make something with my hands.
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
that right there. That's where I'm at right now. I've lived in that service side of just being a part of anything. I mean, could be anything, hospitality, all that stuff.
Yeah,
And you look at again how it works, how it functions, and what it needs to do,
yeah,
so that it can actually be coined or really make a profit.
exactly.
And you go, man, this product shit is a motherfucker.
Yeah, it seems hard.
It
It
it,
probably is hard.
it can get difficult, and that's a lot of times just based on what I've learned so far, regardless of what you're making, is that when things like are what taking place right now, as
Mhm.
far as like the gas going up,
Right.
and then the price of ingredients or the price of materials goes
Sure.
up, molds, all that stuff. How it all works, it can get expensive real quick,
Facts.
more expensive than it was.
Yeah.
And then let's say that 30% profit margin you had, which might have been 70, might be cut down to 15 and 20.
Yeah. No, for sure, man. I mean,
And that
life is
changes
weird.
things.
Yeah, the business is weird, and like it's so funny. I was talking to my neighbor. He is an oil guy,
Oh yeah.
and so he does exploration and some land work. And he was like, you know what? I got so lucky. He's like, I started working around because I was at home and during the pandemic. Didn't want to go anywhere. Didn't want to do anything. And he's an oil guy before all this, but then he's like, I just got the urge to start buying stuff because it was cheap. Started leasing out and doing all this stuff, and now we go to war. We're in this conflict with Russia, and oil is crazy. He's like, dude, I've never had more money in my life. And it's just like one, planning, right? But two, just staying committed to the idea, and working through, some of that. And yeah, I mean, like,
So how
this shit is
important do
hard.
you think the imagination side of that? Because that's the other challenge sometimes too. People don't see it working as fast as they think it should. But some people don't. When I've talked to people and I go, why didn't you think about this? And
Yeah.
they're not working as smart as they should. So they're working harder in areas that the business doesn't need work,
Yeah.
and the business isn't growing as fast as it can because they don't do well in as far as like being efficient is concerned. But they work hard like this.
Yeah, so you're talking about like a misguided focus kind of deal, right? And that happens. It's very it happens to the best of us, right? Where we think that one thing is the problem or one thing will be the cause of our success,
Yeah.
right? And it's not. And it's really hard to when you get entrenched in it and you're so like your balls deep, right? It's hard to know what that is, right? Because the first steps in a new business, the first 100 steps in a new business are really muddy, right? Because you're not really getting traction like based on anything else than you just pushing. There's not like one particular process that's really like been formalized at that stage that's giving you like the results, right? And so my point to you there is that it takes a special kind of person to like step back and ask for help, right?
Oh yeah.
Someone to say, hey, look, can you look at what I'm doing, whether that be a mentor or another business owner or even just an employee, right? I've asked my employees like, yo, am I saying something crazy here? Like, am I doing the wrong shit? And sometimes the answer is yes, like, and that's okay, right? Because I think that's kind of, if anything that makes me special, it's the humility that I have that allows me to ask those kind of questions, right?
Hey.
And so yeah, to your point is like, everybody is subject to falling into that misguided focus. It's more about how do you pull yourself out of it. Like when you realize that you're shifting your focus or you're moving different things around and nothing is changing, it's a you problem. Like you're missing the bigger you're missing the issue.
Yeah.
And it's because you're balls deep and you can't see.
Look, I one thing that if you ask 100 people, they tell you, I say, look, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yes.
And vice versa, people. Part of the reason why, and not even the reason, but one of the things I saw opportunistically was I have an idea, and I know that Parker is a magician, if you would, when it comes to doing certain business, looking at a business, even if you would. So I reached out and I said, hey, boom, and I recorded the whole conversation. There's a moment in the interview, if you would, where we're just talking business, where he corrects me, and he's like, I think, and he's like, I'm pretty sure you were dead set on this other idea. Yeah. And he was right. He was right. And then he came in and drew perspective. So I would tell you to make sure that you, again, get out of your own way, know when to pivot. You are not always right. Most time you're not right at all. If you're doing the works, a lot of times you'll get there. Yeah. But listen, really listen to what the business needs and what needs to happen.
Yeah. So like kind of what I was telling you is like, I'm all about efficiency. And so part of that comes from bootstrapping, right? Like I didn't have funding to start my businesses, right? I had to come up with it. And so in that regard, when I hear other people pitch me ideas, I really do have that perspective. So unless you have an infinite amount of money, I'm going to look at it from the perspective of how can you start this with as little money as possible, right? Because what's the biggest barrier to people starting businesses? It's money, right? They're going to say,
9 out of 10 times.
I can't do this because I don't have the cash, right? Whether it be $1,000, $20,000, or a $50 million, right? Like I think the concept you were talking about would probably be like a couple $1 million build out to get done when you were like really talking through it.
Yeah.
Hire vets and build buildings. And it's like, dude, like that sounds good, and it will be good. But, to start, like especially in the industry, you would have to build, like you'd have to rebuild, imagine like everybody's vision of what it looks like,
Yeah.
And that costs even more money. That's money that you're spending just on intangibles, right? They say it costs $20 million to create a new market. So whatever you got plus $20 million is what it's gonna cost. Like, right? It's like it's so hard.
And trust me, that was a good wake up. And perspective, I normally think in practicality anyway. Yeah. And my original idea, which was to playpen per se, that's it took me right back to the place I literally like, how about we just do this, then start building it out from there.
For sure.
And literally connected me back to the foundation of where I think is opportunity to grow.
Yeah, and that, like, bringing your idea level down to that point does not mean less money, doesn't even mean like it takes longer to get to the end goal, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's another thing people have to relinquish is that, they a lot of times think, well, I have these 10 ideas that can go together in one business and I need all 10 of them for this business to work, right? And it's like, do you? Like, do you really? Like, and a lot of times the answer is no, is you find that one core idea and everything else builds around it, right? And you'd be surprised, like, so many things that I've built that I think will be really special, and then they're not, or that I think is going to be a total dud, and then it's special. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I'll give you one example is the trucking business.
Yeah.
So I just knew that my asset-based trucking business was going to be the shit. I just knew I was going to go crazy. I went out, bought like 25 trucks. I had another 25 trucks leased on, and I almost went broke. It was crazy. We were stressed. I was literally dumping like maybe $50,000, $60,000 a month back into it, even though it was generating like, dude, what, each truck, 50 trucks, we were probably averaging like $18,000 a month, whatever that math is, a fat number, right? Revenue-wise, we were going crazy. But that $50,000 was to cover all the other extra maintenance and all the other stuff, the payroll, because we didn't know how to maintain trucks. We didn't have the process in place. We just weren't with it with that business.
Yeah.
Because I decided to go. I had at that time way more cash than I probably should have. and it's a perfect example of like why it doesn't make any difference. And so now on my service side of the business, I've sold all those assets, liquidated them, and fortunately I broke even or I made money on some of them because of the times with COVID going crazy and
Everybody
really messing the
driving the truck
semiconductor.
and all that stuff.
So we got really, really lucky. But, aside from that, I was able to then pivot and focus on the service side only and really focus on the brokerage. And in my opinion, at the beginning of my trucking journey, I thought the brokerage was boring. I thought it was lackluster. And not just the business itself, just the concept. Like, it just didn't seem fun to me. And now it's going crazy.
Yeah, you're having a blast.
Yeah, I'm having they aren't working over there. They're making hand over fist.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And that's, again, just taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture. And then, as I think a couple of the entrepreneurs they said, follow the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, not it leaving your pocket, but where it's actually being made.
For sure. And it's sometimes hard to do that, right? That's like when you get stuck in the mud, and you have to, and part of the other side is like a lot of early on entrepreneurs don't have financials. And so, luckily, another thing that I would say is that I'm really gifted at is I'm very financially literate when it comes to how money moves through a business.
Yeah.
So cash flow and how that's going to affect the growth of the business. Like, P&Ls are cool, right? Asset, you want to see your asset list and your liabilities. You want to see your balance sheet, all that stuff. All that's cool. But your cash flow is the lifeblood of a new business.
Bro, you got to let them know that you're talking profit and losses and
profit and losses.
Yeah, look, I'm just saying in general. I don't think the average. You keep talking about financial literacy. I understand what you're saying. Private investors are.
We're not talking about credit.
No. Yeah. You just.
No, we're talking about balance sheets and profit and loss statements.
Exactly. And so cash flow, people, a lot of times is what, top line.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, like,
to a degree, it's
gonna be your gross revenue, right?
Yeah.
Minus your initial expenses, basically. Like, that's how I look at my cash flow.
And that's
your
all
gross profit, really.
And that's all business really is, plus and minus. Hopefully, I got more plus than minus.
Facts.
and then you get into the simplifying of things, but
yeah.
And we will at some point. I like that he's got that. Credential, or what is it, a skill, if you would. You got that skill, and a lot of people don't understand how important that skill is, which is, again, when we talked that last time, it was like, whoo, and you're like, oh, I don't want to spend it. And for me, even when we talked the other day, I go, I'd like to be in business even when I have private investors involved, with people who understand the importance of what every dollar means, versus someone who spends frivolously, or I don't think has the best intent for the business, right? So even slowing down and thinking about the bigger picture, I'd rather take my time and get there correctly and move smart than let's get all this and then have nothing to show for.
Yeah, facts. Yeah, for sure. Dude, business is hard.
It is. Look, so we got about we'll sum this up. People, this is part one. We came into the office today. We're just talking.
We can push it a little bit.
We got some time. Trust me. I got to hit the man and family stuff after this, and just more so being a man and challenges with entrepreneur stuff. So that's a whole nother thing. But if you were going to give anybody any advice, and that's we'll kind of close this out. We're at about that 30-minute mark. If you were going to give anybody advice specific to starting a business, being courageous enough to bet on yourself, and things that they could or should focus on as far as follow through is concerned. I mean, there's so many things people need, but what would you say is one of the things you do consistently for most people that come into your world and want to grow or just be better?
Yeah, set targets, set goals, right? And I can't stress that enough. And I'm honestly, I think that based on where I'm at in my life, I'm really bad at this. But when I do it and when I focus on the goal, it changes everything. Like even if it just works for, like, everybody knows their bandwidth for focus, right? I have very little. And so I have to set goals for myself on a weekly basis and sometimes even activity lists for myself on a daily basis.
Ooh, that's another one. That's people, when we first talked that first time, that's one of the things I like your perspective on managing people's activity.
Yeah.
How active they're being throughout the day.
Yeah.
And being in general, like, what are you actually doing? What type of result are you actually driving?
Yes.
You've been sitting here all day. Did you actually get something done?
Yeah. And so like, I guess for new entrepreneurs, that's a big piece, right? Is the activity, because like we were talking about a minute ago, is you don't really know what is driving the revenue, right? You want to do revenue driving activities, revenue generating activities, but it's hard to like at the initial stages, especially if you're new in business, to know exactly what thing is going to sharpen that needle and give you the extra dollar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of just have to do everything at first and just do it, right? Just go. And then after that, you start to realize, okay, like when it comes to sales, you say, okay, well, I said this one thing and I said it 10 times and I had more effectiveness or efficiency than me saying this other thing 10 times, right? And so then you start getting real technical and start like really dialing it in and all that fun stuff. So, but for someone who's just starting, it's like you just literally have to like set a goal and start. That's it. That's Holly. So she's coming in here to probably use the restroom. But yeah, getting that part done is so critical. Just move the ball, right, for the first time, and then that's where you get really successful.
There you go. People, stay moving. As I say, the rules are simple. How else do you expect to improve? So, people, this is a little business talk on part one. I appreciate Parker's candor. One of the things I enjoy, I don't like talking to people who are full of shit. So it's imperative that when I do speak to people, there's an open line of communication about both the truth and the truth, people, is both good and bad, to be clear. But bad is a matter of perspective. The things we learn from so we could choose to be better, and things we learn from so we can do better. Simply put. So, man, thank you so much for part one. People, listen, like, subscribe, share, comment. He's one of those people I think we'll have a few more times on. I know he wants to do a podcast. I'm going to get his other partner, James, on here, man.
Yeah, we're going to do a podcast. That's going to be funny. It's not going to be business at all. Well, we're going to do that. Yes. We're coming up with names right now, so we don't have to talk about that offline.
Yeah, people. So, anywho, stay tuned. Take care of, I was going to say your dogs, but this ain't that one. Be easy.